Hey, now we're in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Superlative Podcast. I'm Edward Bushi. We have one guest, no edits, no post production, just a sharp live conversation about what it really takes to reach higher levels and what comes next. So let's get into it. I want to introduce Julian Scadden from NexStar Networks. Julian Scadden, I hope I'm saying the name properly,
Got it.
says the trades shortage isn't a hiring problem. It's that we spent 30 years telling every smart kid that to skip the wrench and get a degree. So before we get into your story, two sentences. What is NextStar Network, and what are you looking to do with it? And we'll come back to that at the end.
NextStar Network is a member-owned organization in the home services sector. We help the world's best tradespeople become the world's best business people.
Nice, nice. And where are you guys based actually in the states?
Yes, the headquarters is in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, but we serve organizations in Canada, in the States, and some in Australia.
Oh, okay. That
Can't forget my
whoa
friends
that
in Grand Cayman as well.
Oh no, that's really cool. That I only thought the from our onboarding call, I assumed the association was just United States bound, right? So given where you're based, right? You work in an industry where most people think about when only think sorry you work in an industry where most people only think about when something breaks, right?
Right.
What drew you toward the trades in the first place? Like, just we would like to get a backstory from you.
Sure. For me, it was one of those things where traditional education was just not for me. Was not interested in the system, was not interested in the way that we were taught, and wanted to get out. And, I came from an era, or at least a system, that I was a part of. And, you were wrong if you couldn't sit still, if you wanted to fidget, and if you had to manipulate things with your hands to understand them better. It was sit down, take notes, and then test. And so, as a result, I didn't see a future for myself academically, at least not
Mm.
in a university system as I saw it presented. And I wanted to get to work. And so I actually, luckily, stumbled into the trade of plumbing first via me just looking for a job. I was looking for something to do and ended up at a mom and pop plumbing company and began as a ditch digger and became an apprentice plumber and then worked my way into the operations. So not generational. A lot of times in this industry, you will have folks who, their fathers or grandparents or somebody in their family taught them the trade and brought them into the trade. And you have a lot of other folks, if they're not familial, they usually just stumbled into it, but it's been good to me. That's how I found it.
Yeah, that's an amazing start. Like from there, where did you up your skills from plumbing? Like, how what was the next part of your journey from there?
Yeah, for me, what I realized is the field was not so much for me in that I was just relatively slow. The
Oh,
organization that I was working for, they were about revenue and turn as many phone calls as you can, meaning visits to homeowners' homes per day. And I was pretty slow. I was thoughtful, and at the time I was still an apprentice. I was learning, and I had an interest. But I even have something some people call OCD. I have to have things a certain way. I can go kind of slow. I have to have certain things in order. So well, the organization loved me for having probably one of the cleanest trucks in the fleet, the most organized inventory on my truck. All of my paperwork completed, but relative to efficiencies and running calls, I was not the highest performer in that regard. And I had a mentor at the time who, let me know, hey, you're a good kid. I think you're smart. I'm not sure if in the field is the best fit for you. He said, I think you have the abilities to come in and learn the business as well and help us on the operations side. And I was pulled in. And at that time, I realized that I do have a little bit more of a natural interest and I think a little bit more of a knack for the business side of the business than I did with skills with my hands. To this day, I enjoy some tactical work, but it's more of a hobby. I go a little bit slower. I'm not at a pace. And it's just because I don't think it comes as naturally to me as it does for some other technically skilled people that I meet.
yeah, that's amazing. Like, so it sounds like you're more an operator than in the field. But like
That's true.
you come from a background where if you're put to task, right, you could deal with it just a little bit slower than most folks,
For sure.
most tradespeople. But yeah,
Yeah.
and Oh yeah, sorry, you were gonna
No, no,
you were
I
gonna
was just going
say.
to offer, I was going to repeat myself, so I'll do it now. That's really what it is you want to find folks who have an efficiency behind the knowledge that they have
Mm,
and will serve well and do the job well, but can also, understand it. And I'm sure with more times and more reps in the field, it would have come to me eventually. But I can
mm,
also tell you, I don't have the same passion for the integrated systems technically in the
mm.
home that I did for business. It just felt interesting to me to understand how to scale a business, how to serve a community, how to create jobs. These were the type of things that got me excited.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, yeah, like, was there from being in the going into the operation side, was there other things that like unlocked for you, that you knew you were like, you know what, I think this is the kind of uh, place where I want to like build my foundation from.
It's some of the same skills that you'll find in the field, just applied differently. But it's critical thinking, it's problem solving. But I found a desire to not resolve symptoms. And that's the same thing that I can see a technician struggling with in the field. Usually,
Mm,
when you call us out, it may be a symptomatic repair, a leaky faucet. And as a homeowner, you may say just fix the faucet, but there may be a pressure issue to the home, which is only showing up at the faucet, much like a doctor. We talk about this a lot in the classes where we work on our communication skills and help teach communication skills. How do you convey to a homeowner that you're not trying to get over on them or sell them things they don't need, but
mm,
that it's an entire system that's connected and what they may be seeing is a symptomatic issue? Similarly in business, the thing that I realized pretty quickly is where folks were trying to figure out you know, what went wrong in one situation, I always stepped back just naturally and I thought about, well, how could this have been avoided in the first place? What might this also impact if it were to continue? And I think that way of thinking really served me well, and it helped me find different ways. And leadership, I always loved rallying people and saying, what can more of us do together to resolve bigger issues?
mm.
I don't mind being an individual contributor. I take pride in that, but I really find fulfillment in rallying teams and solving. I don't want to call them bigger issues. I'll just say maybe more holistic issues
Mm.
that can
Or
service.
structural, or so to speak. Yeah,
Yeah, process all of those
process.
things.
Yeah. So, like, was there like anything that you learned from the industry that made you decide that you wanted to help out tradespeople? Because I know um, NexStar Network is a little bit about like an association for trades folks, right? You hinted at it like you're helping folks understand how clients think, but and help them better like serve their clients. But like, what do you notice about tradespeople that they could be improving on? And you know what? I'd love to also actually I wanted to get into a history of tradespeople, but like yeah, what do you notice about tradespeople as they work with clients? I'm curious, like how could they, what small thing could they do that they could be improving their service?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors, so I'll rattle off
Mm,
a couple here, just for the sake of folks considering. And then you apply this to your business as you listen to us in our industry. Anyone out there listening, just I'm sure it all applies. They're basic business principles. But the reality is first being priced appropriately. Many other businesses, this is foundational and they consider it. But in our industry, in the home service industry, as I mentioned, it's either generational or it could be a technician that elevated their skill set and eventually said, I want to run my own business. In general, do not come up necessarily through business schools or through business training. So one of the
mm,
things is being priced appropriately, being priced correctly to ensure that you create a great business that will sustain and that will be here for years to come and will serve the members well. So that's one side of it where I can see the businesses can be better.
mm,
But tied to the industry itself and why it attracted me, why I find fulfillment in it, is we're actually helping homeowners have safe homes
mm,
in the world that we live in, you and I, whether it's in Canada, the States, Australia, in general, these nations are pretty secure. And I think when we think about the trades in general, we think about comfort. We think about comfort, inconvenience. Again, I mentioned a leaky faucet or a toilet that won't flush. Maybe it's a fan that's not working, a light that's not functioning, or a switch that's not functioning as it should. You don't have It doesn't seem cool enough in the house in the middle of winter. So I mean, in summer, excuse me, but so it feels like
Yeah.
comfort. But the reality is it's safety. It's safety because there is, number one, everything that we work with is behind a wall. And so you don't know what's going on behind that wall. Number two is there's a high level of engineering and science that's going on behind those walls. Everything
Yeah.
from how the water flows, how it maintains its sanitary nature, the static electricity of the air and how it flows through your home. And the electricity, as you all well can imagine, if something were to go wrong behind those walls. So we view it as comfort, but I also think about in serving the community, what is the safety aspect? I love to know that we made someone's home more safe and comfortable than when we found it, and then the jobs it creates. So it creates these great careers that serve a community. It's not for the sake of simply profit and revenue. It really is a way to make profit and revenue while serving your community and creating careers. So that's what, tying a couple questions together here, that I believe I heard. Number one, some of the issues in the industry, and that's
Mm.
pricing and understanding how to communicate. And number two, why and what's the passion for this industry? Well, it's service and career opportunities. What did you hear in that, or where do your thoughts go?
Yeah. So like it sounds like one of the things that you're, to me, like I was thinking NexStar was really like working with like tradespeople, but it's interesting that you're also talking with homeowners too, right? And approaching them. It sounds like you want to build a culture of just like teaching them, right? Just so that they can get at the problems, uh, or or issues before they actually happen. It sounds like that's a big thing that they misunderstand.
Yeah, that's for sure. Our founding motto from one of our founders was success through education and sharing. Well,
Okay.
initially that was applied to the contractors that made up the Nexstar network. You nailed it on the head. Well, I'm in your home, and the average homeowner will have some form of visit every 2 to 2.5 years. It depends on the trade. Some trades are more frequent than others. Now, you should be having maintenance on your system, so I'll take a moment and give you all a PSA on that. It is a
Mm-hmm.
functioning piece of equipment in the same way that you take care of your vehicle. Many of us neglect the operating machinery within our homes that should be maintained. But my point is that with these episodic visits, every other year, every few years, there is an education piece for the homeowner,
Mm.
that we do want to talk about maintenance, that we do want to talk about upkeep, that we do want to talk about usage and ways to prolong the life or to maximize the use of the equipment or the fixtures in your home. So it's educational all around. Fortunately, with our organization, it is not about sales psychology for the sake of getting over on folks. It's about sales psychology for the fact of connecting, communicating, understanding how someone in a state of distress, uh, the walls that they may have up, as you mentioned early on, most folks call us when something's wrong.
Mm.
So how do you articulate, I'm here to repair what's wrong, but I also want to have a conversation about the state of the system that may have put you in this place or could have you in this space again sooner than you may like. Education all around. You nailed it,
Mm.
Edward.
And is that something that you help the trades people also communicate to to homeowners and stuff like that?
It is. Communication psychology is a big part of our
Mm.
customer facing, just as our customer facing employees of the members organizations, but just as much as we talk process and margin and good practices and efficiencies to the folks behind the scenes that are not front facing the homeowner.
Yeah. One of the things that stuck with me from the onboarding call that we had earlier was like the idea that we don't have enough tradespeople, right? You talked about like educating the homeowner, right, and spreading the word, like this is how good house maintenance or good work looks like, right? Do you want to talk about that? Like how did we get to a point where like we're we're lacking for a good amount of tradespeople,
Well,
and why there should be more?
and we're going to need them. So,
Yeah.
you alluded to it in the beginning. Societally, we definitely had a structure, at least here in the States, where it was focused on 4-year degrees. And we actually started to remove some of the classes that I had as a younger person. We had home ec, where we would actually learn safety and meal prep and nutrition and light repairs around the home. And then we had something that we called shop class. In shop class, you would learn to work with wood and metal and plastics and how to make light repairs. And those classes started to, remove from even, middle and high schools. Now, whether it's liabilities, whether it's funding, or whether it is solely the focus on getting folks to university, it could be the compounding effect of that. So we saw that here in the
Mm.
States for sure. I've seen that over decades. And now, as I've been privileged to raise children, those classes are obsolete. They're not there. They're gone. Takes a special school or a technical school now for some of this hands-on learning. So you have that part. And then compounding with society at the same time is instant gratification. We have social media. We have
Mm.
people becoming rich for being reality TV stars or influencers. Maybe, YouTube folks. And of course, a young person says, that's where I spend my time anyway, and I can make a living there. So that's great. Good. More power to you. But I think also what I heard in your question that I want to call out is the need. Demand is not slowing down. And so we have less people entering the trades as a profession to serve their community, but the demand isn't slowing down. We have more people now seeking housing. We have more homes being built, more multifamily complexes going up. And so I think the call here, the rally is that you are going to need someone licensed who knows what they're doing in your home. That simply watching a YouTube video can be quite confusing. And there's an example I'll use. If you've ever tried to change your headlight or your brake light, maybe in your vehicle, and you go to
Mm.
YouTube and you can put in the exact year, the exact make, and the exact model of your vehicle, it takes a few videos before you can find, and it'll say, here, how to fix a 2024 Volvo headlight. But then you look at the video and that doesn't look like mine. That looks different.
Yeah.
That's a different year. That's a different model. So you keep clicking, trying to find the right thing. Well, you don't have time for that when you're in somebody's home, and you don't have time to make that mistake when you're in
Yeah.
somebody's home by making the wrong connection to the wrong piece of equipment based on watching the wrong video. So went on a little bit of a tangent there to say
I,
the folks are not joining as service people. The demand is continuing to grow. And my concern is that this halfway thought through education that I'm seeing thrown out on social platforms concerns me if someone thinks that that is that it can supplement for the education that you really need. Now, there are some great folks out there. There's NCCER, that's an education platform. There's another one called SkillCat. We partnered with SkillCat for what we call Next Tech Academy because we realized that counting on some of these platforms that exist today for the technical education are incomplete when they're made up of content creators who are not licensed professionals. And even some licensed professionals can only show you one piece of equipment, one scenario. There's so many different things you can run into out there in the field.
this is crazy. You paint a picture where the situation right now is that the demand is there, right? But there's not a lot of skilled tradespeople. Maybe because there's not a lot of them. Maybe that there's some other quirk. But folks folks are hiring people who just do things on a whim from YouTube. That's crazy. Like yeah, like it makes me think like yeah, it's just wild. Like a homeowner would just like, I need help right now. Oh, I'll just gotta go with this guy. Oh, he turns out he's just figuring it out as he goes along on YouTube.
There's some of that going on out there.
Yeah,
I will tell you that the businesses that we see in our network that are performing the best in every nation
yeah,
are the ones that are having these conversations with young folks from grade school to middle school, and then of course through high school, and creating these programs. I like the term that a couple of our members use. They call it ride and decide. You'll actually
okay,
come in, you'll do some training, you'll get your hands dirty, you'll go into some homes, some attics, some crawl spaces, some real world situations, and really understand what it takes to serve on this level, to serve the homeowners, to make the repairs. But they're being proactive. We're not waiting for legislation to figure this out or fix it. We're not waiting for the educational system to come back to what it was and helping people understand.
yeah,
Our members are creating these academies in their businesses, making it part of their business structure and plan going forward of how to bring people into the trades, educate them and train them step by step, bring them from apprentice to journeyman to master so they can keep serving the homes of all of these great nations and keeping you safe. But
yeah.
it's proactive right now. You can't wait for someone else to figure it out.
No, no, like that's what entrepreneurship is all about, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, getting there without any like blockers. But uh, I want to like hone in on that, right? You're saying members are responding to the need for talent by building their own talent pipeline, right? Instead of waiting for it. Like, what does
Correct.
that look like in practice? You say it's defined inside one business, but like let's say there's multiple plumbing businesses, right? They're all teaching their their apprentices how to become great plumbers. Do you not worry that these plumbers will be having different uh, how do you say standards or quality amongst them? Like how do you see that?
All right. Great question. And let me tell you how I came up. Let me
Mm,
tell you what the training was like when I came up. Um, they put you in a truck with some guy and he tells you how he does it. So this is a little bit of the issue that we've had with the industry for decades is you do learn because again, like any business where you go from apprentice to journey to master,
yeah.
you have somebody who teaches you the trade. You have somebody who teaches you the skill. And I would offer that we have a little bit more uniformity now because of the online platforms like some of the ones that I mentioned, where we can actually focus and be more uniform and unified. But boy, I'll tell you, you would learn from just riding in a truck with somebody. Then you might hop in a truck with somebody else and they do it totally different, or they show you another shortcut. Now, this was all additive to your education. Hopefully, you can be, a connective learner and understand the consistencies and the inconsistencies between different people's approaches.
Mm,
But you're right; it is very different. It will always be different, and there is no one governing uniform standard. Even what we have for code, we like to tell folks in our class, and I would like to say this for those of you that are homeowners. I'd like for those of you listening to think about this in your own business. When we hear code, meaning
mm,
that what the city, states, or regulatory committees will say that this is how it must be done in your home, code is the bare minimum in our industry. Code
mm,
is the bare minimum. Doesn't mean that it has to be aesthetically pleasing.
yeah.
Doesn't mean that it has to be the most efficient to the system. It means that it is the bare minimum that keeps you safe. That's actually what code means. When people say, is it up
Yeah.
to code? Well, getting up to code, number one, is critically important. But number two, there's an art and a science. And I would tell you that code is the bare minimum. So, what are the other things that you first must understand about code? And then, how can you deliver in a way that actually brings value? And like I said, it could be efficiency or aesthetic to also what you deliver. So, what in
Mm,
your industry is simply just bringing it up to code? And what could you say that no, that we also bring an art and a science and a finesse to it? And so that's part of it as well. So understanding safety first,
mm,
that's the primary concern. Is it functioning properly? Is it safe to standard? But I can tell you, I've been in buildings before where I might see an exhaust vent, or I can see the way that something was plumbed that was
mm,
quite cumbersome, or it looks horrible. And
yeah.
with just a little bit more time and conversation, you could have done it another way and still been within code. But no, it's up to code. So now I can walk away and the job is done. So I think in every industry you have folks that good enough is done, and then you have other folks who say, wait a minute, this can be better and functional.
Mm. Okay, that I can see that. So there's code that the idea of or the concept of doing things to code, which creates a baseline.
Yes.
There's a concept of like online academies that like standardize or regularize certain concepts. So okay,
Yes.
I get that. Yeah. So you mentioned stuff in about like what NexStar does in the beginning and throughout the conversation so far. But do you want to expand on like what NexStar does as an association with all the members that you have?
Well, our purpose is to help our members. I call us more of an accelerator than an incubator. So
Oh,
most of the businesses that we serve, relatively small,
yeah.
usually independent. Single person operators. When I say independent, they don't have financial backing. They're not a franchisee. They don't have capital ad nauseum, and they're trying to run a business and at the same time learn the business as well as excel at the trade. So the primary focuses are to accelerate them in their business education. But
Mm,
the other thing that I want to point out is we believe that it's critically important to maintain an ethical and moral standard while we serve our community. Because just as we all have these feelings about either home service repair or auto mechanics. And there's this thing that once you find somebody you can trust, you just stick with them. You just stick with them because you're unsure.
mm,
If you don't have the technical understanding, are they getting over on me? Are they selling me something I don't need? I don't understand why it's going this direction. So we also believe not only empowering the members of our organization to run great businesses, but also to uplift the moral and ethical standard in our industry to ensure there in every business there are going to be some folks that are unscrupulous. In any sub population of our social or society, you're going to have folks who are doing things just to get over it. I'd like to believe
Mm,
it's a small percentage in general, but we want to hold that standard, and we want to say when you join this business, here's why it's more important than just making a buck. It's about honoring the homeowner. It's about honoring the employee and honoring your business. So we call it the triple win.
mm.
And so that's something that we really talk about and that we want to elevate the industry as well, not simply teach people how to have profitability and a good exit strategy. There are three dimensions to the way that we think about service and the way that we think about building businesses.
Nice, nice. So, like, I, that, I know your association is like multinational. Like, do you mind telling me how did you get to that point?
It was word of mouth.
Really?
It's been the blessing of our organization is we're not a volume based organization,
Mm,
and the way that our founders and our founding members wrote the bylaws by which we are governed, Nexstar cannot be for everyone. And this is interesting. Two things: our bylaws were written so that we will be member owned.
mm,
This is a very unique business model. It's not a nonprofit. It's not an association. It's not an ESOP. It's a regular corporation. But the way that our bylaws are founded is every dollar of profit must go back in the form of goods and services to our members. And so the business is run to simply focus on members first. There is no one with equity. There are no dividends or distributions of our profit. It's pure in the way that it's meant to serve our members.
hmm,
And the other side of that is our members, our founding members set in the bylaws boundary restrictions, market restrictions that for every 300,000 people in a given populated area, there can only be one NextStar member. So there's a layer of proprietary nature relative to whether it's marketing strategies or operational strategies or the things that we offer. And a member feels good about having that proprietary nature. But the reality is also that in the pure business model, when I speak to it in the same way of being member owned and the profits going back to members, goods and services, well, if we're not a volume-based organization per our bylaws, then we can resist the urge to try to serve everyone and grow purely for the sake of growth's sake. We will grow based on the success of our members and their ability to grow great and strong businesses in their community. So we have
mm,
all these governing factors that really help us stay true to our mission and stay true to the ethical standard of the industry. It's a unique business to run,
hmm.
but the longer I've been here, the more beauty I see. And I wonder how much of it was aspirational for our founders and how much they really knew how this would play out 30 years later. But it was really well done, and it allows us to serve with integrity and distinction.
That's really like marvelous that you've like built this like over decades ago. Like, it if I could characterize it, it sounds like it's like a co-op.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there you go. Like,
Similar.
that's similar. That works with trades folks, trade businesses on multiple jurisdictions. Do you notice the needs being different across all of them, or are they all having the same I don't know, like requirements or pain points that you're solving?
Yeah, I think just like life, 90% of your issues are shared. We
Mm,
all think we're so different or we're so unique. I would say 90% are shared, but there's nuance. There can be nuance from regionality. There can be nuance in the regionality and the trade that you choose. I'll give you just a quick example. An air conditioner in Florida is going to have, shorter lifespan and different needs than an air conditioner in good old Canada. I'll tell you that. So, there can be those things. But then there's also the owner's perspective or the owner's drives and desires. So, like I said, 90% of running the business, same issues. It's pricing, it's people, it's efficiency, it's processes, it's the things that your listeners work through and that they champion every day in their own businesses. Um, and then, you have, and again, we can all relate to this, the challenges of the owner.
mm,
Am I preparing for handoff to a second generation or a third or a fourth generation? Am I preparing maybe for a financial exit, for an acquisition that I can have a liquidity event? Am I
mm,
thinking about an ESOP? Or Am I diversifying and getting into other home services that I want to add to this business, or an entrepreneurial spirit who's also doing vending machines and public storage as well as home services? So I think more of it comes into, the areas of exit strategy and desires of the owner, regionality of application of the trades, but beyond that,
Mm,
it's all pretty much the same stuff.
yeah. Having a network already like put together, like I think NexStar also, besides just the trades folks, like I think businesses, right, that are like multinational would also like benefit from a network or a roster of tradespeople. Uh, and yeah,
Well, that's the beauty of, bringing folks together. When
yeah,
we bring our members together, we use more of a facilitative model than a sage on the stage model. Now, granted, there are benchmarks and experiences that we've had as a staff. We have over 100 employees. And so, sure, we've seen things, and we sometimes we need to be prescriptive or more consultative. But the reality is we achieve that perspective by bringing our members together and listening. The first half of the year, I've spent the first half of this year, and we do it every year, holding what we call regional meetings. One member will host other members to come visit. Now, we call them regional, and traditionally they are folks from the region, but sometimes folks will travel from another part of the nation or another country to see how things are done. And what
mm,
this business will do, they'll open up their business. We walk around, we look at their inventory, we look at their call center, we look at their business, we ask them questions, and we just listen to them share between each other the challenges they're having, the ways that they've overcome. We will invite vendors and partners in the industry who provide services for our businesses, and we're always seeking to learn. And there's a phrase that's not always true, but we use it a lot, and we say the answer's in the room. If you can get enough people in the room, the answer is generally and usually almost always in the room. Not always, but for the most part. And that when I
yeah,
heard you talk about networks and bringing people together, that's another advantage and benefit that you have here. And I would encourage you, in your business, whatever it is as you're listening today, find that network of peers. If you're not doing it now, I hope you are. We hear a lot about coaches and mentors, which is one to one, but
yeah.
the reality of getting in these networking groups and just listening to the room, looking for themes. Okay, resist the urge to kind of, what's the hot topic? Look at the themes and how is it showing up and how does that apply in your business? And start to find answers that way, rallying through your community and your network.
Yeah, that's messaging that could really like apply to tech startups too. Like the concept of masterminds and doing meetups
Yes.
where people just meet together and just share what they're building. That's like that's why I love having conversations like these, right? You're seeing um, um, basically humans coming together, solving things by just working together, just in a different universe, but not too far away.
Right.
So talking about themes, right? Like, do you how do you guys like respond to the idea of AI coming along? Do you see a lot of trades folks utilizing that to their advantage for either like sales or like troubleshooting? Like, what's the general gist of what you're noticing in your network?
Yeah, I think relative to any independent business owner, you're going to have this range of folks who adopt. But in so many ways, it's unavoidable. I'll tell you what we're seeing. So the quick answer is yes, I'm seeing adoption, a curiosity for sure. The issue, and I don't know, this might ring true for other industries as well, but definitely what we're seeing is a very segmented and disconnected approach. And I'll just break that down for you. In our businesses, you have inventory, you have your call center, you have your dispatch, you have technicians in the field, you have your fleet. And what we're seeing are solutions for those individual functions in the business. We have not seen a really well done collective connected experience from whether it's a learning a language learning model or an automated efficiency. So what we're seeing right now, and that makes it difficult
Hmm.
for any independent business owner. You're trying to run a good business as it is. You're not sure what's true and what's not, what will really work and isn't. So then you find a solution that is working, but then it only impacts one piece of your business. Now, how do I connect it to these other pieces of the business? And so that's the hardest part right now, is it can
Yeah,
almost be more of a distraction where
that's
there's
interesting.
curiosity and interest and there are efficiencies to be gained. But if you start bolting on a bunch of things to your business, it actually becomes more difficult to manage because now you have all these, disconnected systems or disconnected processes So it's adding some complexity where it was meant to bring some resolve.
Yeah, like I know on my side, right? I've been using AI to like manage how do I say email correspondence, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, like it's another task to, and I'm getting better at it, but it's another task to make it do websites and other design stuff, which I need to also like build. But then there's also developing the product. That's crazy. That no, not crazy, but more like that's it's very surprising to hear that other people are piecing together AI to their business, but only in certain parts. It's not integrated yet. So maybe people, startup founders listening to this podcast video could take a page from this conversation. So yeah, Julian, I have to say this is like a really been a fascinating conversation, and I love hearing perspectives from folks in the trades. It's completely different and more hands on and from what we're used to in tech, right? So I want to slow the train down, but before that, before we end the show, how can trades folks, right, who watch this video, um, catch you or learn more about NexStar Network, and maybe even join one of these regional seminars?
That'd be great. That'd be great. I would encourage you. You can easily find us nextstarnetwork.com. I will warn you, there is a Nexstar Network that is a media group.
Oh,
It works in broadcast, so you'll know really quickly if they start talking about TV shows and things of that
yeah.
nature. That's not us.
Okay.
But yeah, nextstarnetwork.com, Nexstar Network on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I do my best because we are member owned and proprietary, and not every territory or market is open. I do my best to honor the tradition of our founder, and
Mm,
I'll start to land the plane here with you, Edward, on this
yeah.
note. Our founder was actually a plumber out of Milwaukee, Frank J. Blau Jr.
Mm,
And Frank would write articles in industry publications. He would fly around the nation at that time and hold seminars to educate people all on his own dime, and he would just wanted to educate. He just wanted to educate and tell people. That's actually how NextStar was founded. He was cornered by 12 founding members who said, "You have to make this a real business. You've helped us so much with your seminars and you've helped us with your articles. You have to make this a real business." And he was so smart that when they created the bylaws, he was never actually an employee. They went and found an executive director. They started this as a member-owned organization. So to get back to the point here of how folks can find us and how they might participate, I do my best to honor, the legacy of how Nexstar was begun by writing articles. There's a platform called Substack where people write blogs. I write blogs on there. I
mm,
put links on LinkedIn and short stories to get you thinking, and share as much as I can about the business here to get to the independent business owners in the home services who may not be eligible for membership, whether it's a market restriction or it's just not the right fit. Do everything we can to just put out as much information to help this industry, to help the independent business owners. It's tough out there alone, but you don't have to be. As
mm.
Edward said, find your mastermind group, find a network, and dig into articles. And we'll continue to supply those out there for you all to keep running the great businesses, serving your communities. It's our pleasure to serve you.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that, Julian. So, I want to say we really appreciate you having being on board for this podcast and chatting with me, and appreciate the mission that you guys are doing, keeping homes safe, keeping trades folks informed, right, and connected too. So yeah, much appreciated, and thank you for your leadership there. All right, we will end the podcast here. Stay tuned for the next episode. And Julian, again, thanks for